Thank you, Christina. And that's okay. Well, I say we go ahead and get started. Want to make sure that I'm honoring everyone's time on this call today. This is our second informational call to talk about the Housing Justice RFP. So definitely just want to thank you all for your time and thank you for joining us. I am Kenitra Folkwa with the foundation. I've been with the foundation for about 4 years now, and I'm a program director, and I also oversee our grants as well. And I'm joined by my colleague, Christine, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Gray Aqua, Senior Program Officer here at the Horizon Foundation. I lead our new housing work, so I'm very happy to share what we've been working with and what we've come up with in our new RFP. And I'm actually the newest member of the Horizon team. I came on board in January of this year, right as we were launching our new strategic plan, which you will hear more about from Kenitra in just a moment.
So thank you, Christina. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for your interest in our new Housing Justice RFP. So today we are just going to talk a little bit more about the opportunity. So I will start with just giving you a little bit of background of just the foundation and the work that we do and some high levels of our strategic plan. And then I'll pass it over to Christina, who will tell you a little bit more about how we as a foundation have gotten into the housing space and what this opportunity looks like. And then I will conclude the call just telling you a little bit more information on how to apply and just the timeline as well. I will say while I'm talking, if you just want to chat your name and organization in the chat for us, would love to know who's on the call. And that would be very helpful for us. So just a little bit of background just on the foundation. So we are the Horizon Foundation. We are a health and wellness foundation here in the county, and we were founded about 25 years ago in 1998. This has been a really, really big year for us. Last year, we went through an intentional and very in-depth process to set our new strategic plan. So with the strategic plan, there comes a lot of changes. And with those changes, looks like at the foundation is, and the first time in 25 years, our foundation has changed its vision, its mission, and its values. And this was done to, really represent a bold new direction. We have created a 5-year strategic plan that really lays the groundwork for our future. And this is a future where our foundation is really committed to leading with racial equity as our North Star, one that is centering community and partnering with community at every level to think about how we deliver trust-centered philanthropy and be able to just drive impact in the areas of greatest need. So you can see on the screen that our vision, we envision a Howard County free from systemic inequities, where all people can live abundant and healthy lives. And our mission really is to work side by side with community to build power, advocate for policy change, and dismantle structural racism to achieve better health for everyone in Howard County and Greater Maryland. So hopefully, as you see, as we go through this opportunity, you'll see how we are uplifting our vision and our mission, even in the work that we're doing within this housing justice RFP. So I also want to talk a little bit about our values. So underneath all the work that we do are our values. And these are really the principles that give us purpose and direction. So we believe that our values are able to guide us in the way we aspire to act and be able to show up in the community. And it really provides a way for the community to hold us accountable. So we are saying these are things important to us, and we want to know how these are resonating, within the community. So we have 5 values: impactful. We act with intentionality and draw upon lived experience, research, and data to drive positive health outcomes in our community. Trustworthy. We work to earn trust by building relationships through sincerity and vulnerability. Anti-racist. We challenge and transform policies, behaviors, and beliefs that perpetuate systemic racism and other intersecting forms of oppression. Courageous. We acknowledge and use our privilege to influence others and dispel harmful narratives and demand change. And lastly, catalytic. We build and share power to foster coalitions that advance health equity. And the last thing I'll kind of say about just the overall debrief of the foundation is really just around our new strategic priority areas. So we are starting this journey with 3 new priority areas, and these are areas defined and identified by Howard County residents. So we went through a very intentional process of being able to seek community input about, what are the challenges here in Howard County. And that has landed us in 3 buckets of work. So this is to demand an equitable healthcare system, increase affordability and build wealth, and dismantle structural racism through community building. So as you can see in this document that our focus areas and our strategic priority areas are depicted in a circle. And this is really to show that none of our strategic priorities stand alone. They are interconnected and interrelated on every level, and working on one priority inevitably will touch another priority. So we recognize that we are all individuals and we don't live our life in silos. And so all of these strategic areas and our independent focus areas, such as like maternal health and mental health and housing and wealth attainment, all of these are connected, and we seek to work on all of these together with community and partners as well. So you'll see that housing falls under increasing affordability and building wealth. This is a new topic area for the foundation, and we're really excited to explore it with community. And now I'll just pass it over to Christina, who can give you a little bit more information just about how we got here and what some of our housing priorities look like.
Thank you, Kenitra, for that overview. So again, my name is Christina Gray-Akpa, Senior Program Officer here at the Horizon Foundation, leading our new housing work. I am thrilled to be able to share our new housing justice RFP. And before we dive into the details of our new grant opportunities, I want to be able to share some background, how we got here, what led us to this work. As Kenitra mentioned, this new housing justice RFP stems from our strategic planning process, where we identified housing as a focus area for the first time in the foundation's history. It's a pretty major milestone, so it's pretty exciting for us. During that strategic planning process, we spent a year and a half, as Kenitra mentioned, speaking with residents, community organizations, current, past grantees, local leaders and elected officials, all sorts of partners. What we heard loud and clear is that housing is a critical issue here in Howard County. Like many places, Howard County is facing an affordable housing crisis. Housing costs are skyrocketing. We have a housing supply shortage, and the housing stock that we do have is rapidly aging. So here are just a few other snapshots of why housing justice and why this is an issue that we feel compelled to take on as a health foundation. So just between 2019 and 2022, Maryland actually lost 57% of its housing stock. Here in Howard County, 1 in 5 homeowners are what's called cost burden. That means they pay more than 30% of their income on housing. And for renters, it's even greater. Among almost 7,000 households here in the county, there are people paying over 50% of their income on housing. So we know that this is a serious problem. We know that we want to be able to do something to tackle it, because all of this is leading to greater housing instability. It's put more families at risk of homelessness. It's absolutely decreasing people's access to economic security and opportunity. This is an important issue to us at the Horizon Foundation, because we know that housing not only affects people's health and well-being, but it's a pathway to building wealth and economic opportunity. And if our vision, as Kenitra shared with you, is a Howard County free from systemic inequities, then we have to tackle housing justice. So what is housing justice? So you'll see that this new grant opportunity, and the RFP is our housing justice RFP. So there is a distinction there between housing and housing justice that we think is pretty important. Housing justice simply means that we believe everyone should have access to safe, secure, affordable, and quality living conditions. Sounds simple, right? I think most of us can get on board with that. But this housing justice framework really is what's guiding our new housing work. I think one of the important things to note about housing justice is it's not just saying everyone has a right to a place to live. It's also rooted in equity, systems change, and anti-racism, which aligns with those values that Kenitra shared earlier. It's also a way to address past and current inequities in housing, and it means targeting the communities most impacted by housing inequities. In Howard County, the data is clear. That means Black and Brown residents. That's who has been hit the hardest by the housing crisis in the county. That's who's more likely to be a renter. But we also know that older adults, people with disabilities, low wage workers, they also face unique challenges and barriers to securing stable, secure housing. So we have thought long and hard about what it will take to make an impact and also what we can do as a foundation. So we've spent the last several months exploring barriers to housing, also looking at what some of the solutions are, what other communities are trying, including many of our neighboring counties. We've also been looking at where are there opportunities for progress. And what we discovered is there's tremendous need, there are a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of energy, a lot of momentum, a lot of people already working on the ground here in Howard County, and there's a lot of potential for change. So this RFP that we're sharing really is the culmination of all of our deep listening, learning, and reflection. This RFP is also our way to really introduce our new housing justice strategy and priorities and how we are thinking about this new body of work. So I'd love to share what we've come up with and how we see this work unfolding and how we hope we can partner with organizations like yourself and other folks in the community to really advance housing justice. So first off, we know housing is complex. There is no single solution to the housing crisis. We recognize this work will take the combined efforts of housing advocates, organizers, service providers, local state government, elected officials, policymakers, developers, and community members, and lots of other stakeholders who are working together to design innovative solutions. We also know we have our work cut out for us and that improving housing will not happen overnight. That's why this RFP actually focuses on what we like to do in the first phase of our housing work. So years 1 and 2. Our big picture goal is we want to be able to remove barriers to affordable, high quality housing here in Howard County. And we want to be able to advance housing justice here in the county. To help us do that, we are offering multiple single and multi-year grants to, again, focus on advancing housing justice here in Howard County. The grant period will begin January 1st, 2025. For our 1-year grantees, things will conclude in December 31st of 2025. And again, there's a possibility of multi-year grants, so there might be grantees whose work concludes in 2026. Again, this is just phase 1. We realize there is lots to do when it comes to housing. We know that it will take longer term solutions. We are thinking about what years 4 and 5 might look like, but this RFP focuses on the first 2 years. And in these first 2 years, we've identified 3 key priorities to help really orient and guide our new housing justice work. First, we want to expand renter protections. So again, we know renters are among the folks who are getting hit the hardest when it comes to the housing crisis here in Howard County and across the country. So we want to be able to work with partners to organize, build power among tenants. We want to be able to support advocacy and policy change that will protect renters. We want to think about how we can make sure we are targeting and addressing the needs of Black and Brown renters, especially considering those residents are more likely to be renters. We also want to sustain home ownership. So we are focusing on how we can support advocacy and policy change, but also pilot and scale interventions that we have some evidence that they really can help people stay in their homes. So that includes approaches like housing counseling, foreclosure prevention. We want to figure out ways to help people stay in their homes. And lastly, our priority is to strengthen systems to advance housing justice. Essentially, for us, that means we want to be able to create an ecosystem where we are helping to build more housing justice leaders. So that includes everything from using our convening power as funders, forming and strengthening coalitions, to designing housing prevention strategies, and also being able to lay the groundwork for more affordable housing production. We know that an important element of this work is we need more housing, but we also know there are a lot of steps that it will take for us to get to more housing being built here in the county. So those are our three key priorities for this first phase of our housing work. We have 2 tracks of grant funding available. So there are 2 opportunities for organizations who might be interested in partnering with us and who are aligned with at least one or more of these priorities. The first track is our organizing and advocacy grant. So with this opportunity, grantees can be awarded up to $100,000 each year for up to 2 years. So there is the potential for a grantee to receive $200,000 over 2 years. This grant is focused on organizations who want to partner with the foundation on one of those priorities that we mentioned earlier. And we're really thinking about work, again, that is focused on organizing, advocacy, community engagement, building power. So that might look like collaborating to form tenant associations and doing tenant organizing. That might look like developing campaigns specifically around some state policies that will protect renters or protect homeowners. So all of those organizing and advocacy grant activities, we see a part of this new opportunity. The expectation, what we're looking for, is that organizations will collaborate with us. They will begin a co-creation process with us. And you will hear more from Kenitra a little later about what co-creation means. You'll hear us mention that a lot more during this call, but that is an important element of this new direction we're taking as a foundation. So, we'll come to that in a little bit, but I think that's important to note that we're really looking for folks who want to collaborate. We are not necessarily looking for a specific programmatic idea or project or campaign that you might already have in mind. Our next track is what we're calling our housing service provider work group. So we know here in Howard County, there is this really strong, tremendous ecosystem of community organizations that are on the front lines, that are providing direct services to our residents with some of the most acute needs. What we have heard in all of our conversations with many of these service providers and community-based organizations is the needs are getting greater, and the funding is not increasing to match these needs. We also know that there is deep expertise among our service providers and our community-based organizations. But right now, a lot of organizations are just focused on responding to crises. And so there's not always the space or bandwidth to think about what does prevention look like, or what might policy and advocacy change look like. So we want to convene some of our counties, service providers, and community-based organizations and bring folks around the table to really think about what will it take to prevent housing insecurity? How do we elevate what works so that folks aren't constantly in this cycle of crisis? Also, we want to bring people together around the table to make policy recommendations. We think that our service providers and community organizations can be a catalyst for system change. We want to provide support in the space for folks to really explore that. So the expectation for these grantees is that you participate in this work group, that at least 1 to 2 representatives are attending 6 meetings throughout 2025 and are a part of this process. Those are our 2 grant opportunities. Again, in just a moment, you'll hear more from Kenitra about some of the specifics of the application process, and also why this looks a lot different than perhaps what you may have seen in RFPs from Horizon Foundation in the past. One of the major ways that this does look different is you've noticed that we are awarding significantly more grant dollars than we have in the past. We are deeply committed to housing. We want to make sure that we are able to not only signal that commitment, but we are able to actually do that in a concrete way so that we can see some real impact. We can work with communities in a meaningful way and work with the folks who've already been on the ground to really be able to move the needle in a substantive way. More importantly, as I alluded to earlier, this RFP is different because we are not asking for potential grantees to tell us what programmatic idea you have or what intervention you'd like funding for. We want to hear your ideas, absolutely. But what we're really looking for is organizations who are interested in working side by side with the foundation to co-create housing justice solutions together. So again, when we talk about co-creation, we are really thinking about a process where we are all a part of this journey of collaborating and partnering together. So the foundation is at the table with our grantees. We are each sharing power. We are sharing decision making. We are sharing ownership of this work and sharing ownership of the process to design and actually implement solutions. So what does that mean in terms of this RFP? How are we evaluating grant applications if we're not looking for some of the conventional programmatic ideas or projects or campaigns? What are we actually looking for? So we are seeking partners with a track record of collaboration. We want to be able to see examples of how you may have partnered in the past or how you are thinking about future partnerships. We are also interested in organizations that are community-led, that build power, that demonstrate a commitment to racial equity and anti-racism. We're also looking for partners who know how to mobilize and advocate and who are effective stewards of their organizations. Now, we know every organization may be at a different place when it comes to each of these areas. We don't expect folks to have everything figured out. We don't have everything figured out. We're still learning ourselves. But what we really are interested in seeing is how you are committed to learning and growing. And part of the grantee experience, as Kenitra will share also, is that we are offering an even more robust set of supports and technical assistance and capacity building so that we can help you deepen your experience and expertise with all of these different facets, whether it is helping you move further along in your organization's equity journey or learning more about what power building and advocacy and policy change looks like. So again, what we're interested in is organizations who are committed to our new housing priorities and also really committed to this process of collaboration and co-creation. I'm going to pause here now, though, and turn things back over to Kenitra so she can talk more about the grant making process and what else is new in this RFP and what you need to know if you're interested in applying.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you for kind of teeing up, what that additional grantee support looks like. So I know I mentioned earlier in the call, as I talked about, the foundation went through a very intentional process just around our strategic plan. And as we were, looking at our strategic plan, a component of that was looking at our grant making. So we really wanted to think about how our grant making best serves future applicants and our grantees. How are we making the process more accessible to applicants and grantees? How are we listening or providing and acting on the input that we've heard from community about grant making and the type of supports that they receive in some of our grants, and how are we expanding upon that? So it's just some key grantee supports that I would just want to mention. The first one is co-creation. So like Christina said, you will, that's a big word for the foundation. This is something new to the foundation and just like how we want to do our work. So as Christina said, within this application, you won't see a section that says, oh, tell me your big idea, or what's your project, or what are you looking to do? That is what we want to do together. So as a foundation, we recognize that we are not the experts, and we're certainly not the experts in the housing space, that this is really new to us. And we recognize that so many of our partners and community members have so much expertise. So we want to be able to work together with our selected grantees and develop, equitable decision-making approaches to advancing housing solutions in the county. We want to just co-create the solutions together to think about how can we solve some of these housing challenges in Howard County. So I will be completely transparent that this is new. We don't have everything figured out. We're in meetings weekly saying, what does this look like? What are we going to do next year? How are we going to make these decisions together? So know that this is a process for the foundation, and we're just hoping as we build trust and expand on our trust with our community organizations that you will go on this journey with us and be open to the newness of this process. Another big thing is just flexibility in our funding. So all selected grantees will be awarding an operating grant. And really, we just see this as a way to just allow for more innovation, emergent action, and sustainability. So typically, we have funded just that specific project. You have had to, submit budget modifications if you wanted to change an idea or tweak something. And we're just trying to relax that standard just a little bit. We know that, as we work with organizations, and as Christina said, we're really looking to see like where your passion lies. How committed are you to this work? And we hope that, you use this funding to support that work, but we also know that there are other needs in your organization this funding can help as well. So we want to be able to just be flexible for you to use the funding in a way that best supports the work that you're doing within the housing space and your overall work within your organization as well. And then the last thing I'll just talk about is what we're calling our new grantee experience. So this really comes from just a lot of interactions that we've had with our current grantees. We've done a lot of cohort funding. We've seen the power of collaboration. We've seen the power of creating community with the foundation and among our grantees. So we really just want to build upon this. So within this grant opportunity, selected grantees will participate in a collaborative learning journey with other grantees to really just be able to help foster a stronger sense of community and provide opportunities for you to deepen your learning around racial equity and organizing and advocacy principles. So as you can see, both of these grants are really rooted in addressing systemic inequities, addressing structural racism, addressing advocacy and power building. So we know that everyone is going to bring a different skill set to the table. So we want to come together and be able to work together and enhance all of our skill sets together. So all grantees that are selected will be expected to participate in 4 quarterly convenings. And during these convenings is where we'll come together and talk about some of these deeper issues and learn some new skills together. We also know that, we are funding completely different and unique organizations, and each organization has their own set of needs. So we're also providing just some unique and on-demand technical assistance in areas uplifted by you as a potential grantee. So what does that look like? For example, if you are, you're going through a process of developing new board members, or you're bringing new board members on hand or on board, or you're thinking about, what does my racial equity journey really look like within the organization? We can be able to provide some additional support directly to your organization to kind of help you guide through that process as well. So this is something that we're really excited about it. Some of it is new. Some of it is, we're expanding on other principles that we previously used in our grant making, but we're really excited to be able to, test out and try out this new approach with this housing RFP. So next, I'll just talk a little bit about how to apply. I will say the grant application is open. It's been open since August the 27th. All applicants must submit an application through our online grant system that you can find within our RFP. If you are new to applying to Horizon Foundation funding, you will have to set up a new user account, and the system will walk you through that. If you are a returning grantee or returning applicant, You should already have a password and a user ID. We ask that you do not create a separate account under a new organization. We just ask that you, if you can't find your password, you can use the lost password feature, but please log into your existing account. And I'm always here to help those who might have any challenges with that. Organizations can apply to both opportunities. I will say that though you can apply for both, it is very likely that you will only be selected for one award. But there's no penalty for applying to both, especially if you're interested in both opportunities. Um, and then Christina alluded to this a little, just about like why this application is different. And hopefully you can see as we're going through this process that grant making within itself at the Horizon Foundation does look a little different. It looks different from last year from us, like how we did things last year, and just looks a little different from other grant makers. So in this application, you'll see that you won't see your standard questions of like, what's the project I'm doing? Or, how are you going to spend the money or upload a budget? We really are trying to look at, who your organization is. How are you connected to the housing space? How are you connected to some of these priorities? Or how do you want to be connected? And, really be able to assess the passion and the experience and just even the capacity of your organization to do this work. So when looking at some of the questions, you might see things like, what does embedding racial equity look like within your organization? Maybe describing your experience in working with communities of color. How do you make decisions? How involved is your board, and how does your board support the decisions that you make? So just want to be completely transparent that when you open that application, you might say, whoa, like this is different. I haven't seen questions like that. And hopefully, and you can see, why we're asking these types of questions. I will say if you have access to the RFP that we put out, before you even log into the grant portal, you can access a PDF of all the questions that will allow you to kind of just start thinking through the questions and allow you to kind of just start brainstorming those as well. So the last big thing I'll say on this is just the deadline is October the 8th. And the grant application will close at 11:59 and 59 seconds. So you have all day. You have all day on October 8th to get it in, but that is the deadline. And then lastly, just a little bit about our selection process and the timeline for that. So we know the date, October 8th, is when the application closes. We'll go through a review period of between like mid-October, where foundation staff and board will review all of our applications. Horizon Foundation and staff and board will select finalists to participate in a 30-minute follow-up conversation. And you'll see that those dates are a little different depending on what track you apply to. You'll see that for the organizing and advocacy finalists, we'll have an in-person conversation on November the 12th or November the 14th. And for our Track 2 Housing Service Provider Work Group finalists, we'll invite you to a virtual conversation. You'll see that we're not calling these interviews. These are really just conversation to talk more about your organization. We know that there's only so much you can capture in writing, especially when we give you word limits and caps on how much you can write. So this is just an opportunity to learn more about your organization, ask more questions if we have some, just to hear more about your passion and capacity of the work as well. Communication from the Horizon Foundation will come at every step of the way. So after the review period, you will be updated on whether, the status of your application and whether you're moving on to a follow-up conversation. And you'll see that all grantees will be notified by November the 19th at the latest. So again, the application is open. It closes October the 8th. We are so very excited that you joined this call and came to learn more about this opportunity. And I know you might have a lot of questions. So Christina and I will pause right now. And this is our contact information. If you have questions around the grant opportunity within itself and just questions on like what might be happening within the grant and just more of those type of questions, you can contact Christina. And I'm happy to help with any questions just around navigating the grant portal and getting you set up and using the system as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So I know we have done a lot of talking, so we will we'll stop here. Maybe Christina, we can stop sharing since we have a small group. And then we can see everyone's faces and just be able to answer any questions. Feel free to put your questions in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and ask as well, that's perfectly fine.
Um, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, my question is, how many partners are you looking for? Do you have an idea of the numbers that will be you'll be working with?
Thank you for that question. So I think in the spirit of our co-creation model, we do not have hard and fast numbers in terms of this amount of funding is available to X number of organizations. We really want to be surprised through this RFP process and hope it might surface some new partners or people who we may have partnered with in the past, but who are interested in partnering with us in a new way. So what I can share is, with the funding we have available, with these two grant opportunities, we have a few different scenarios that we've developed to think about how can we maximize our investment. So ideally, with that first grant opportunity, the organizing and advocacy grant, we would love to be able to fund upwards of 5 or more grantees. For our service provider work group, that one is a little different because we know many of the players, many of the organizations who are working here. That said, we want to make sure we are not just seeking folks we have partnered with in the past. So we are open to, again, upwards of 5 or more grantees for the second grant opportunity as well. It really does depend, I think, on what we find out through this RFP, where people's interests lie, where their capacity lies. So again, for instance, our organizing and advocacy grant opportunity, we have up to $200,000 for a grantee to receive for 2 years. There could very well be some organizations who receive that full amount of funding. There could be 1 or 2 organizations that receive a smaller amount for maybe up to 1 year. So we are definitely thinking about some different scenarios, how we can make sure that we are thinking about how to maximize the grant dollars we do have available. Thank you for that question. Any other questions about the housing grant opportunity itself, what we might be looking for, or things that we can help clarify, or anything that we can also explain more and share more details about the actual grant application process?
And I also add that we have recorded all of these calls. So we had one this morning as well. So we will share the recordings. We will share the direct link to the RFP. I can also share the direct link to the list of the questions from the application and a PDF of our slides, and we can share that to everyone on this call and everyone that has registered for the call as well, just to make sure that you have that information readily just accessible to you. So look for that email, I'll say by Friday. Well, thank you. Definitely want to express our gratitude. I think as a foundation, when you put out a RFP, you don't know who's going to be interested or you don't know who's going to join. So it has been a lot of interest, and we know that how housing is such a big need in Howard County and all the challenges around it. So it has been delightful just to see old and new faces that are interested in engaging more in this work. So thank you. Alrighty, well, we'll go ahead and end this call, and please reach out to Christina or myself if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm out.